Hello and welcome back to the Lore Raider. The Space Pirates were the most iconic and well-known villains in the Metroid universe, a collective of marauding spacefaring species all hell-bent on bringing down the Galactic Federation. However, despite how iconic and powerful the Space Pirates seem to be, by the time of Metroid Dread, they've disappeared from the galactic scene. How is this possible? Well, today, we find out. One thing we must get across is how dominant the Space Pirates were much of the time. We must remember that we play as Samus Aran, one of the strongest beings in the verse, so of course we have a skewed perception. But we must remember, before Zero Mission, the pirates roamed the galaxy basically unchecked against a toothless Federation, which allowed for the massacre of K-12 and Naishi. They managed to fight an 11-year war against the Federation and only narrowly lost the war. And had Dark Samus survived a bit longer, she could have used the Space Pirates' super weapon and fleet killer, the Doomseye. In no way should the Space Pirates be treated as run-of-the-mill fodder to be blasted and swept aside. However, despite their many strengths, I and all of us can admit that there are two major weaknesses in the Space Pirates that contributed to their defeat. The first weakness: they were outpopulated. Don't get me wrong, in terms of their basic military, the Space Pirates were far larger, mobilizing at least a dozen different species into their military cause, whilst the Federation, despite being made up of presumably hundreds of species, relied almost exclusively for humans for their military. But this also meant while the pirates threw everything they had consistently at the Federation, the Galactic Federation practically fought with one hand behind their back. And when they did finally go all out, as the good Chairman Keaton explained, they managed to wipe out the Space Pirates from space. It also explains the events of the Prime series. The pirates are very much trying to rebuild during that time. When they do finally engage in a serious military offensive during the end of the Prime area, well, they only manage one offensive push at Norian, the defense of their homeworlds at Ertrigus, the last stand at Planet Phase, and finally the defense of the Bermuda system, all of which end in failure. Despite being led by the extremely intelligent and powerful Dark Samus, it only took Admiral Dane's single fleet to overpower the pirates in Prime 3. To put it simply, they were declining far before Prime 3 or even Super Metroid. So effectively, after the Space Pirate Federation War in the pre-Zero Mission era, the Space Pirates were already losing the war when the Federation began using its full might. Be that as it may, does that really explain how they disappeared from the Milky Way galaxy after Super Metroid? No. You see, the Space Pirates had a really strange structure not shared by any other faction in Metroid. They were extremely hive-minded. You see, Space Pirates in their base form were non-sapient and pretty much simple animals. They derived their intelligence from strong leaders, and as such, they were completely subservient to them. This was great, of course, as it meant for the pirate leaders there was no chance of betrayal from their underlings. However, it had an obvious problem. If the leaders died, the pirates under their control immediately disintegrated back to animals. When Dark Samus and by extension Phazon died, suddenly only Zabezian pirates were left. And after the deaths of Ridley and Mother Brain and the capture of Kraid and Dragon, the Space Pirates effectively ceased to exist in the Milky Way galaxy, only found now on the bottle ship and the BSL stations as mindless lab rats. By the time of the Samus and Joy manga, Samus herself took advantage of the pirates' critical weakness. You see, by the time of the manga, the pirates had fled to the Extreme Galaxy and reorganized into the Greed Corps. Well, Samus started by exterminating the deadly 6 stars, Greed's commanders, and then moved on to his generals, the generals Knight and Bishop. And finally, with the death of the big man himself, Greed, at the end of the manga, the Greed Corps was doomed to collapse. And not just the Greed Corps, but the Space Pirates as an entity altogether. They simply disappeared overnight. Well, there you have it. Why the Space Pirates couldn't win the war. They were simply outgunned, therefore when the Federation actually applied all their pressure, they simply overpowered the pirates, and the pirates simply were too centralized for their own good. Yes, they couldn't experience betrayal, and they didn't have to worry about that, but if the enemy simply strikes and kills all of your leaders, like Samus did, well, you were doomed. What do you think? Am I being too hard on the space pirates? Did the space pirates almost win and I just didn't see it? Or were they always fodder and I'm overhyping them? Let me know in the comments down below, but you know how I see you. Be safe, be wise, and please pray for a true peace in space.